For my movie of the week, I propose the story of Whitey Bulger. Whitey Bulger was one of the most notorious criminals in American history. He was an Irish mobster from Boston who was the #2 man on the FBI's most wanted list for his role in dozens of murders during the 1970s and 80s and for the corruption of the Boston division of the FBI. What drew me to his case was his ability to go off the grid for more than 15 years as a fugitive of the police. This seems almost impossible today with our iPhones, portable cameras, and CCTV. Bulger's life and crime spanned a time in America when it was very much still the Wild West to the technological age of today. What fascinated me about Bulger, which relates to a theme which I think will give depth to the movie, was his double life as an informant and criminal. In society today, there is a dual nature to how we present ourselves to one another. Because of social media like Facebook and Twitter, blogs, etc., people create an embodiment of themselves apart from who they are in real life. With our Facebook page or Twitter account, we create an ideal image of ourselves, but there is something inherently deceitful in this. How we present ourselves in the social media stratosphere is far from who we are in reality. In an era before Facebook, Bulger was able to deceive the FBI, many of his devoted followers in South Boston, and his fellow gang members that he was either an informant and not a criminal and not an informant, or neither at all. The key characters in the Bulger story are, of course, Bulger himself, his brother, Billy Bulger, his co-conspirator in the FBI, John Connolly, and his longtime girlfriend, Catherine Gregg. Now, John Connolly grew up in the same neighborhood as Whitey, in the same housing project, and he would become an FBI agent and Bulger his informant. His brother Billy, who also grew up in South Boston with Whitey and John Connolly, would become the Massachusetts State Senate President and later the President of the University of Massachusetts. Now, we don't know what part Billy Bulger had in Whitey's criminal organization, but there are many ways to implicate him in a movie. I can imagine scenes similar to those in Oliver Stone's JFK, supporting all sorts of wild conspiracy theories about Billy. Now, Catherine Gregg was Billy's longtime girlfriend, and it's also little is also known about the nature of their relationship, but there are endless possibilities in shaping their relationship in a movie. What struck me about their relationship was how it began. Gregg was originally married to one of the McGonagall brothers, who were members of the Mullen Gang. Two of these brothers were murdered by Bulger, one of which was married to Gregg's twin sister, Margaret. Now, all else we know about Catherine Gregg is, while on the run with Bulger, she had multiple plastic surgeries to change her appearance, and this could relate to the theme of multiple personalities, multiple identities. As for the plot, I envision the beginning of the movie with the scene which begins the book Black Mass, the secret meeting between Whitey Bulger and John Connolly under a bridge or in some vacant parking lot. Now, at this point, it isn't revealed that Bulger will become John Connolly's informant. The two are just in the car, having a conversation, reminiscing about their past growing up in South Boston. Then we flash back to South Boston in the 50s. And I have here a picture of Bulger as a youngster. And we begin with the instance in which Bulger, a notorious feared street fighter, saves John Connolly from a group of hoodlums trying to beat him up, and this begins their relationship. Now, in Act 2, we see Whitey's Wild West-style bank robbery spree, then his capture by the police in the late 1950s. While in prison, he is experimented on by Max von Sydow-like scientist Sidney Gottlieb, who gives Bulger LSD and other weird drugs, which result in Bulger having chronic headaches and violent mood swings. Now in Act 3, Bulger is released from prison and he joins the Killeen gang. His superiors are Donald Killeen and Billy O'Sullivan. The Killeen gang is in a war with the Mullen gang, the McGonigal brothers, one of which is married to Catherine Gregg, one of which is married to Catherine Gregg's twin sister Margaret, are in the Mullen gang. Now, the most important scene in Act 3 is Whitey accidentally murdering the youngest McGonigal brother, thinking it was the eldest. The youngest was not a criminal, and the eldest was the leader. The eldest, Polly, was the one married to Margaret Gregg. Now, in retaliation, Polly kills both of Whitey's superiors, Donald Killeen and Billy O'Sullivan. And in Act 3, it also begins the relationship between Bulger and Catherine Gregg, while she's still married to one of the McGonigal brothers. And now in Act 4, a key member of the Mullen gang, Pat Nee, sets up a meeting between himself, the one remaining member of the Killeen gang, Whitey Bulger, and another famous Irish mobster, Howie Winter, and a member or a representative of the Italian Mafia and Giulio family. Now, in this meeting, Pat Nee of the Mullen gang and Bulger become members of Howie Winter's Winter Hill gang. Now, Act 4 ends by revisiting the very first scene, the secret meeting between Bulger and Connolly, and at this point it's revealed that Bulger is becoming Connolly's informant. Now, Act 5 emphasizes Bulger's double life. So, he first kills Polly McGonigal, who is married to Catherine Gregg's twin sister, yet his relationship with Catherine Gregg strengthens. He also has secret meetings with the head of the Italian Mafia, Jerry Angiulo, while at the same time informing on the Italian Mafia to John Connolly. Also, he gets two new underlings in the Winter Hill gang, Stephen the Rifleman Flemmy and Kevin Weeks. He tells these men to never rat on your friends or your enemies, yet we know that Bulger is an informant. He also begins a race-fixing operation with Howie Winter. In Act 6, it's revealed that Stephen the Rifleman Flemmy is also an informant, and Flemmy and Bulger bribe John Connolly and another FBI agent, John Morris, to protect them from being prosecuted for their various crimes. Also in Act 6, Howie Winter is arrested for the race-fixing operation, but Bulger is not. Connolly saves him from being arrested. And Jerry Angiulo, the head of the Italian Mafia, is arrested on RICO charges. And it isn't Bulger's information which leads to this arrest, it's Connolly forging documents to attribute the information which led to Angiulo's arrest to Bulger in order to protect Bulger as an FBI informant. Now in Act 7, everything starts to turn against Bulger. He starts an operation with Pat Nee to run guns to the IRA on the ship called the Valhalla. When this is blown up by the DEA, Bulger tortures and murders the ship captain of the Valhalla, John McIntyre. Also, the DEA takes down Bulger's drug ring in South Boston, in which he had been dealing cocaine and marijuana, which leads to the arrest of Stephen the Rifleman Flemmy. And in Act 8, before Bulger is arrested, Connolly tips him off, and he and Catherine Gregg escapes. Now, while they are on the run, in London, in Italy, in South America, only in drawings, John Morris, the FBI agent, testifies against Stephen the Rifleman Flemmy. Kevin Weeks reveals to the police the bodies buried around Boston. The dozens of bodies that the Winter Hill Gang were responsible for. Billy Bulger goes before Congress and pleads the Fifth. And finally, at the end, Whitey and Catherine Gregg are captured. Now, I intend the demographic for this movie of the week to be young males like myself. It should piggyback off of the success of television shows like CSI, Law and Order, Ganglands, The Wire, and The Sopranos. It also piggybacks off of the success of recent Boston movies such as The Departed and The Town. Now, this movie is relevant to today because Bulger's trial is still ongoing, and even though Boston is fascinated by the trial, many other people across the country still know little about Bulger's story. As for casting, this was sort of difficult, but I came up with Josh Brolin as Bulger because he has sort of a sinister look, a furrowed brow and smirk smile, and Charlize Theron to play Catherine Gregg because she has blonde hair and sort of similar piercing eyes. Now, in terms of a network, I propose this to go to HBO because of their reputation and their ability to deal with violent subject matter. So that's my movie of the week.